What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here. With me is Robin Zyka, taking a look at today's early-only NBA slate, also the late, which you can skip to. I'll put the time down in the comments. Fun slate, though. You and I were talking. I like the early-only a little bit more than the late, but good one today.
Yeah, the late slate seems a little bit like the Christmas Day slate since we got Cleveland and Golden State. We got all the stars in the late slate. But the early slate is actually the one with the better fantasy games, the more values. So I'm kind of leaning the early slate for more of my play.
Yeah, the value is going to be certainly key. It's just much better in the early only. And we'll kind of jump right into it. Not a lot of injuries to really dissect. We'll kind of go through the positions. But point guard, that Portland-Washington game, massive 220 total. I don't see how that game's just a primary focus for me in my lineups today.
Yeah, they're both teams who don't play a lot of defense. Washington plays very well at home. And Wall and Lillard, they'll probably just be scoring on each other the entire game.
Yeah, with those two, there's a big price difference, $1,000 between them. Obviously, I think Wall has the higher ceiling just because we've seen him really contribute across the boards, but I kind of like the discount with Lillard.
Yeah, I think I would lean Wall just because for the upside, like you said, and he's home. I like playing Wall at home just because his home road splits, they don't show it much, but it looks like he's a better player at home when you actually watch the games.
Yeah, he seems to be a little more consistent. In terms of production. But obviously, I think both those guys, really they come for me as just the clear 1-2 point guards on that slate.
Yep, and then next up, I got the Jeff Teague and then Drew Holiday. They're playing each other, and they're two teams who don't play a lot of defense. And it's going to be an up-paced game for actually both teams, so it's a good spot for both those players.
Yeah, definitely. And Teague had a solid game against him earlier this year. And Teague's always a guy who just sits in that mid-range price, and I just feel like he can match anyone on any given slate. But, this matchup doesn't get much better for basically these two teams defensively just because, as you said, they're up-tempo and they don't play defense at all.
Yeah, exactly. The total's set at 214, and it's going to be a close game, so I like that game a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And then we kind of get into two guys here. Derrick Rose, Elfrid Payton. Payton obviously coming off a career game and gets a chance to really do it again against a Denver backcourt defense that's, dead last in the NBA.
Yeah, Payton is he's definitely tournament only because he can get you 10, he can get you 60. But this game is a good spot for him to get another at least 40 points for an upside. Yeah, it's a good spot for him.
Yeah, as you said, minutes are always not the most productive thing with this Orlando team still, but I don't mind him if he's going to play 30 minutes, but obviously as we've seen before, he can be, low 20s at times. I think that's where the tournament risk still sits.
Yeah, and then the last player I'm really looking at as a punt is Malcolm Delaney. He's been getting Korver's minutes, about 27 minutes a game, and he's just above min price on both sites. So he's a good punt play at the position.
Yeah, and New York's been awful against guards in terms of defense. So, that was a sneaky call. You brought him up this morning, and I wasn't really looking at him.
Yeah, I don't think many people will be on him. I hope it stays that way, but I doubt it. Just because a lot of people are going to be in that mid-range or paying for Wall or Lillard. No one's going to really want to pay for Malcolm Delaney.
Yeah, and you look at him, the good thing is he's also, it's 3,300. There's not a lot of value with point guards, and you're kind of looking at basically, as you said, people are going to be looking up to use Wall Lillard, which you obviously still can, but pairing them together would help you out in all those other positions.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, in terms of guys that I'm probably not going to be looking at, Malcolm Brogdon, I think has gotten a little bit too expensive. TJ McConnell, those guys are probably just off my radar on this slate because I like a lot of the other options.
Yeah, the prices are starting to creep up where it just cuts into their upside. So I really don't have much interest in either of them. If I had to choose, I'd probably go Brogdon just because he gets the better matchup. But I'm probably not going to be on either of them.
Yeah, I don't think so. Brogdon, 6K on DraftKings is just a little too much for me. I'd rather kind of use Payton or Rose, who are just 200-300 more.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, moving over to shooting guard, and obviously if you're playing on FanDuel, I think Giannis comes in as your top option. For me, elite pay-up option, you can kind of build around him. I don't really care at this point. The guy's an animal.
Yeah, and his price isn't even that high. It's only $10,300 for a guy who he realistically has 70-point upside. So, I like him at that price. And in this matchup, if it stays close, he could absolutely eat.
Yeah, it could. And I mean, that's a game where I think I don't know where that one comes in terms of the early only slate. Like I like New Orleans and Indy. I like Portland, Washington. I think that game's really among those elite ones that I'll be targeting because, I think there is a decent amount of guys that you can use like Embiid and Parker and a couple other GPP shots.
Yeah, the only risk with that with Philly obviously is the blowout risk, but Philly's been playing well lately. They're actually like a pretty decent team.
Yeah, I think they won 5 or 6 out of the last 7 games and
Yeah,
coming in hot here.
trust the process.
Other guys at shooting guard, CJ McCollum, I think is a little too expensive for me. I don't mind the spot, but I don't know if I'm going to be paying for him on this slate.
Yeah, his price is getting too high for me. It really caps his upside. He's just a scorer, so it's too tough for me to pay 8,600 on FanDuel for him.
Yeah, the peripheral numbers drop when Lillard comes back, so obviously that's something new to note. In that same game, though, I don't mind Bradley Beal. He's another guy, though. I mean, is just going to score, but a little bit cheaper, so I don't mind him.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. He's a pure scorer also. Shooting guard's actually pretty weak today, but I mean, I kind of like Beal. I kind of like McCollum, but he's too expensive. I like Tyreek Evans. Just because he's still only 5,600 and he's too cheap for the amount of production he will typically bring when he's healthy and getting his normal allotment of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, coming off, we saw that upside against Brooklyn, 28 minutes. Has had a day off in between that Chicago game, which is always a plus. Still on the minutes restriction, but, if he's sitting around there mid-20s at that price tag, I mean, great matchup for him.
Yeah, it's just a matter if the minutes will be there.
Yeah, definitely. As far as other guys, I mean, Denver, Gary Harris, Will Barton. Gary Harris is probably your safer cash game option. Looks probable for today, a little bit cheaper. I don't know how much Barton exposure I'll have just because the minutes are always there. Probably be very little, but those are two guys that are in decent spots.
Yeah, they're both in decent spots. I think Barton brings a little more upside, but he's obviously the more risky play. If I had to choose, I'd probably go Barton for the upside, but I have no issue using Gary Harris in any format.
Also. No, super cheap. I mean, he's a guy who can contribute a little bit across the board, but outside of that, though, I mean, I'm not really expecting anything above 25, 28 FanDuel, DraftKings points.
Yeah, at least he's a safe play at the position, though. It's a weak position today.
Yeah, definitely. One I can see kind of paying down. I mean, a couple of options here. Evan Fournier, he's our first kind of injury news. Doubtful for today. Jody Meeks will pick up the start there. I don't mind him. I mean, 4K on DraftKings, pretty cheap over on FanDuel as well. In terms of a fill-in option, I don't mind him if you're kind of building stars and scrubs.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. He could put up over 25 fantasy points in a game at almost min price, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, definitely. And, with the Knicks, Porzingis, Lance Thomas, Justin Holiday picks up a lot of the minutes behind them just because they usually use Mel at the 4. He's a guy I like. I mean, he's always kind of consistently produced whenever Knicks have had injuries and he's stepped into a bigger role. I mean, if he's getting 25 minutes, he's bare min on DraftKings.
Bare min on FanDuel, too. So he could be a good punt play. I mean, there's a couple good super punt plays in this slate, but value as a whole is tough to find. And
yeah, definitely.
Like on a day, an all-day slate.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're building, I mean, I don't mind just jumping all the way down at shooting guard because, as you mentioned, it's a pretty weak position. We talked about a lot of point guards. We'll get to a lot of power forwards and centers as well that you might be looking to use.
Yeah, definitely. That's all I got at shooting guard, though.
Yeah, definitely. Small forward, Greek Freak, now small forward eligible on DraftKings, which was just a huge plus for me because I just would never use him at point guard.
Yeah, I like the multi-position eligibility. It's just when you have a guy playing 4 positions and you just have him listed as a point guard, it kind of gets annoying.
Yeah, so that's a problem. But I mean, now Glorious, we can use other point guards. We can use Greek Freak in there. For me, I don't mind paying up. I mean, how much did you say it was on FanDuel?
10-8, I believe, or 10-3.
Yeah, 10-3, 10-5 on DraftKings. So cheaper than Anthony Davis, who's kind of the other expensive double-digit pay-up option. A little bit more expensive than guys like Wall and Lillard, but I don't mind him. I don't mind building around him on this slate.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. I also like Carmelo. He has very good home road splits. He's averaging around 40 DraftKings points at home and only 34 on the road. And he really picks up the slack when Porzingis is out of the lineup.
Yeah, that's something to mention. I mean, the usage really goes up. He hasn't had a bad outing against Atlanta either. Um, Paul George, I mean, I like the price. The production really hasn't been all that great. I mean, he's been rather kind of lackluster. We saw a couple good performances earlier last week, but outside of that, I mean, I just don't feel like he's brought a lot of upside to the table for me. But it's a great matchup. I think he's a safe cash game option. I think the matchup is going to up his ceiling a little bit here too.
Yeah, he's a safe cash game option. He hasn't really shown a really game this season where he's exploded for like 50 fantasy points or more, but I still like him as a cash option. And then going down a little bit, I like Wilson Chandler. Darrell Arthur's out again, and Chandler's been getting over 30 minutes the last couple of games, slotting into the starting lineup. And the last 2 games, he had almost 40 fantasy points in both games. So he's playing
He's
well.
been huge.
Yep.
Yeah, back-to-back games with 20-plus real points. And he's also been rebounding well. I mean, 7, 8, and 7 rebounds in his last 3 games. Yeah, I like him a lot, and he's always at that price where you can just kind of fit him in. If Otto Porter goes, I think this is also another option. I think he's obviously the third option between Beal and Wall. But, he's actually been surprisingly good this season. I like him as cash game guy too.
Yeah, he's a very good player at home. He has pretty good home road splits, and this game is just a great game to target for fantasy.
Yeah, it's really a matter. Really, all 5 are in play for me on Washington side.
Yeah, me too.
So, Aaron Gordon. I mean, this is a guy who, I always was a big fan of. Obviously, big U of A guy, but I mean, finally getting some minutes, averaging 34 over the last 5. Decent matchup against Denver. I mean, if he's going to be playing upper 30s. I think the upside's there for that price. I also think he brings a reasonable floor, even though, at times we seem to be a little bit lower than maybe what you might want.
Yeah, I like Aaron Gordon. I can't use him in cash just because he has a floor of about 5 fantasy points, but he could score 40 fantasy points in any given night. He was doing it when Ibaka was out, and then when Fournier is out, he's picking up the slack too. So it's a good spot for him, and he's a cheap price, so I like him.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really not a lot of other small forwards that I'm really in. I mean, Robert Covington, GPP, just because the matchup's good for him, always has that defensive upside as well. And if he gets hot, watch out. I think he's more return to play, obviously, but probably a guy I'm not going to have a lot of exposure. Maybe just 1 in 5 lineups.
Yeah, he's a tournament play. I mean, if his shot's falling, he's a decent play, but it just hasn't been falling this year. He can put up 40 fantasy points if he's hitting a shot, but that's about it. And then a punt player position, I mean, it's not great, but Kuzminskis, that's how to say his name. He put up 19 points off the bench the other night, and with no Lance Thomas, he might get a little extra run, but it's just a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, obviously, we've seen him basically in blowout situations, but yeah, I mean, with Porzingis and Lance Thomas out, Noah's not going to play a full dose of minutes. They may run small. I could kind of see him getting a little bit more run this game. Kind of nailing the Knicks value might be the key for winning a GPP today.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to go absolute punts on this slate just because there's a lot of good players in the mid-range options across the board. And I think a complete stars and scrubs will give you a little different build than everyone else.
Yeah, like definitely.
A full stars and scrubs, not just like a couple stars, a couple mid-range, like an all-out stars and scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, jumping into power forward, I mean, Anthony Davis kind of quietly been playing really well. I mean, averaging over 60 DK points in the last week, 11-7, obviously the price is up there. Really good spot against Indy, who's just been a bad rebounding team. They've really struggled against bigs. I don't mind him. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to build around him in cash, but, GPPs, I don't mind using him a lot.
Yeah, he's probably my favorite guy to pay up for on the slate to go for tournaments, that is. The matchup can't get much better. Indiana doesn't play a lot of defense, and he is just quietly playing really well these last 3 games. And he even missed the 1 game with the hip or whatever it was. But, I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he could absolutely go off.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the thing is, 1 nick and he's going down for 2 weeks. So
yeah, he'll trip tying his shoe and be out the game.
But Paul Forward, I mean, it's absolutely loaded. I mean, I don't mind Paul Millsap in a decent spot. I'm always curious to see his ownership because I just feel like he's the lost guy now.
Yeah, he's my go-to cash guy. He's always safe for me.
Yeah, he is. I mean, and one guy, that defensive upside is absolutely huge. I mean, this is a guy who, can equal, 5 blocks plus steals and kind of go off in that way as well. Jabari Parker, 7,400 on DK. Obviously, the prices come up, but I think deservingly so, just how consistent he's been.
Yeah, he gets a lot of minutes, and it's a good matchup against Philly. Even though Philly's been playing well, they still give up a lot of fantasy points to opposing players. So I like Parker. And
Yeah, good
then
spot.
And then one thing on the Knicks-Hawks game we keep hitting on, both teams are on a back-to-back. So those value guys might actually be even more valuable tonight.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've seen at times, especially with the way the Knicks are just playing right now. I mean, there's not a lot of trust to really be had in that group, I think, even with the starters saying. But, yeah, that's certainly a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a close game, but they're both on back-to-back, so they'll be tired legs. So maybe the bench guys get a little bit more run.
Yeah, certainly true. Markieff Morris, we'll talk about him.
He's not fun to roster, but he's got upside. He could score 40 fantasy points if he doesn't foul out in the first 5 minutes. But it's a good matchup, so I'm okay with using him not in cash, but in a tournament.
Yeah, I can never go cash with this guy ever. That's just one thing that I can never do. But yeah, I mean, nobody's allowing more points than Portland to power forwards right now. And Markieff Morris, I mean, reasonable price, reasonable upside. I mean, great way to get exposure to that game for a cheaper price.
Yeah, and he's a better player at home, just like the rest of the Wizards. And then 2 other guys that's around the same price point of him on FanDuel. I got Thad Young and Terrence Jones. I'll start with Thad Young. It's just a good matchup against the Pelicans. We were just talking about before how it'll be a up-paced game for both teams, high total, a lot of rebounds to go around. And then Terrence Jones, same thing. He's been starting lately and playing about 35 minutes last 2 games. So that's a good spot for him if he does that again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in Jones, it's like I would love to trust it in terms of cash games, but I don't know if I quite can. I'd rather kind of use Thad in that span and probably pay up in my other spot. But yeah, I love Jones, though.
That's the cash game guy out of those 2. Out of those 3, but Morris, he's the cash game guy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Alfred Camino, 5,100 on DraftKings. We were talking, I mean, he's more expensive on FanDuel than he is here on DK. I don't mind him, but playing really well. I mean, averaging 30 DK points over his last 5 games. And also a decent spot because, we talk about Markieff Morris. We're not talking about his defense.
Yeah, I like him on DraftKings. I can't touch him on FanDuel where he's 5,700. It just kills his upside at that point, and it's just not worth using him.
Yeah, too expensive. And it's a little bit more lenient there in terms of pricing, so you really don't need to go down that road.
Yeah, and then one person we forgot to touch on is Jokic. He's 8K on FanDuel, but he's got huge upside if he doesn't get in foul trouble. I love using him in tournaments.
Yeah, I do too. And even with that price tag coming up, it just seems like he's a guy, I mean, defensively very solid. Rebounds, I mean, his assist game is just phenomenal too.
Yep, and that's all I got at the position.
Yeah, power forward's a spot that I'll be looking to use the mid-range or really pay up.
Yep, and then on the center's actually kind of weak tonight. Oh, this early only slate. There's only about 5 guys I'm considering using.
Yeah, I am too, and I think I'm looking to pay up at other positions. I don't know how much I'll be using the expensive guys. I like Greg Monroe, who's kind of been consistent of late. Him and Gortat are just at a price tag where I feel comfortable just sliding them in for kind of a salary relief.
Yeah, they're both safe players position. I prefer Miles on FanDuel. He's only 500 more, but Miles Turner, he's got big upside. The Pelicans are one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, and it's just a good spot for him.
Yeah, Miles Turner is certainly the better FanDuel play. Turner, I mean, he's 1,000 more than Monroe and Gortat on DK, so a little bit of a price difference there. How do you feel about Mason Plumlee? I mean, we've been talking about that game quite a bit. I mean, rather cheap center too.
Yeah, I don't mind him. He's been playing pretty well lately. He was a former Net, so I watched a lot of him a few years ago. And he's a decent player, a good defender. But if you foul him, he's going to miss every free throw. He's not the best scorer, even though he's been scoring a decent amount lately. He's decent for about maybe 30 fantasy points in this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like him more on DK just because you can roster 2 centers and he's only 5,800. FanDuel being your only option, I mean, I don't mind it. I think he's still a safe cash game option because 30 fantasy points is usually where he sits. So you can always kind of rely on him for that. But in terms of upside, I think he's just more of a cash game play.
Yeah, same here. But my favorite cash game play at the center position is Embiid. Obviously, the process. His price is 8,000, but you know you're going to get probably around 40 fantasy points from him. I don't like him tournaments for that reason, because he's not going to get more than 28 minutes, and it's just really hard for a guy to just crush upside in 28 minutes. So I'm leaning cash only for him, even though he's going to carry probably the highest ownership at the position.
Yeah, I think the problem is he's moved from a GPP to play to a cash game play just because he's so expensive now. Like for that price tag, I mean, you really want a lot more upside than what you're going to get. I mean, 40, fantasy points is certainly there, 45, pushing it. But, we look at the guys cheaper, Miles Turner, who's 1,000 cheaper, Vucevic, Gordon Monroe. I don't mind those guys if they're going to get me, 5, 10 less points for, 2,000 cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll have the upside to outscore Embiid just because they play more minutes.
Yeah. So keep an eye on that. I mean, anyone else here? I mean, is there a special someone that you wanted to talk about here at center?
My boy Hernan Gomez. Actually, Lance Thomas just got ruled out. Hernan Gomez might actually get the start tonight. And if he's getting the start tonight, he's minimum price on both sides. Even if he doesn't get the start, I like him and take a shot in tournaments. But he had 20 minutes last game, almost a double-double in those 20 minutes. I can't see him getting more than 25 minutes tonight. But when your minimum price against Atlanta, I don't mind it. I'll take shots in tournament on him. He will definitely be on my main tournament team, which is crazy, but I like to go crazy in GPPs.
And you talked about, the possible back-to-back there as well. So, that could push more minutes his way.
Yeah, I actually like, now that I'm starting to think about it, I'm starting to like him more and more. He's probably going to be on my main team.
Oh, man. Keep an eye out. If you see 0.30% next to these guys, you'll just
it's all mine.
It's all Rob's. Yeah. So
that's it for this early slate, though.
Yeah. So we'll jump into the late slate. Before we jump into the late slate, TJ McConnell ruled out, and Sergio Rodriguez is going to pick up all the minutes. Good cash game guy. I think he's a guy. Obviously, 3,200 on DraftKings. So if you do need a cheap value, he should be eating up a lot of minutes there.
Yeah, he's 4K on FanDuel, so I still prefer Malcolm Delaney, but he's going to be he'll carry a little bit more ownership than you'd expect today.
Yeah, definitely. But jumping into the late slate, just 4 games. You said it's a lot like Christmas. Cleveland, Golden State, OKC, and the Clippers. For me, I think the first thing I noticed, I just looked at this 4 game. I was like, I'm not paying for Westbrook. He's 2 to 3K more expensive than every other superstar.
Yeah, I'm not paying for him either. Chris Paul actually does a really good job. He's best defensive point guard in the league, in my opinion. He does a good job at containing Westbrook. But I do love Chris Paul in this matchup. He in his last, I think it was 10 games against the Thunder, he's averaged over 40 fantasy points against them. And he's not that expensive compared to what you would think he'd come in at. So he's in a great spot.
And he's averaged a near triple-double against them this season. 16, 8, and 9. So it's just like, if I can get similar numbers for 2 to 3K cheaper, I'm going to be going that route. Just because point guard's absolutely loaded too. I don't mind Curry in a GPP just because he's kind of found his game. People are going to look at that last game a lot and just go, oh, he was horrible against the Cavs. But home matchup, with the way he's rolling right now, this is the time I feel like I'm just going to be buying low on him.
Yeah, I don't mind him. He actually hasn't historically shot well against the Cavs. They do a decent job at closing out on him. But the total in that game, it opened at 224, and it's already up to 226, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning right now. So I think it's just going to keep going up and up and might actually get to like the 228 point when it's all said and done.
I think so too. And so I feel like in terms of a guy that I'm fading, I'm not really looking to use Isaiah Thomas. I just think the price in between all those guys on DraftKings, Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving are all cheaper than him. I just feel like kind of skipping one or the other.
Yeah, I love Isaiah Thomas as a player, but with the price creeping up there, it's starting to cut into his upside a little bit. He leads the league in fourth quarter scoring. He'll probably get you around 40 fantasy points tonight, but when you're priced over 9K on FanDuel, I can't do it.
I don't think so either. I like him a lot, but as you said, I just think the upside, the other guys for me just have that range. I think it's more consistent in terms of hitting.
Yeah, he's a great player. I hope he's an all-star, but he's too expensive for me tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you feel like Irving's going to bounce or not bounce back, but have a similar outing than Christmas where he's going to be kind of that main secondary producer behind LeBron.
I think he'll have a good game. I wrote him up in my GPP article today, but he had 7 steals in that game on Christmas, and that's just not going to happen again. If it does, great, but the 7 steals is a lot. You can maybe pencil him in for 2 or 3. So that'll cut out his points by 8 points. So he really finished about 50 fantasy points in that game, which is still a great game at his price. He has the upside to score over, honestly, 40 real points in a game. He can do it. So I like him in tournaments.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this is sort of a tournament slate, this 4-gamer. Kemba Walker's a guy I'm really intrigued with. I'm curious to see his ownership tonight because I just feel like he's the lesser name out of the guys that we just mentioned. And I still think there's reasonable upside for a cheaper price.
Yeah, he tends to play well up in the Northeast. UConn, playing well at the Garden, plays well in Boston for his career. So I like him as a sneaky play. He'll be definitely lower owned than Curry, Irving, Paul, maybe even Thomas, Westbrook. He should be the lowest owned.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in terms of value at point guard, I mean, there's really nothing here. You and I were joking around. It's basically George Hill, who's a value, but I mean, not the typical price that we usually talk about for value.
Yeah, he'll hit his value probably, but that's about it. On FanDuel, if Avery Bradley is somehow ruled out, I don't think he will be. I think he plays tonight, but Marcus Smart becomes an okay value also.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been playing pretty well when filling in. But outside of that, I mean, I'm really looking to pay up at that position. I don't see you really using anyone else. I mean, I know Austin Rivers is drawing starts, but I don't think I can really use him on this slate.
Yeah, he'll probably get the Oladipo defense too. So
Yeah, definitely a downside there. Shooting guard, this is a spot where I'm probably going to be looking to dive down at the position just because I like the guys you can pay up for, but I think in terms of just using my money towards other positions, I'm going to have to just really go down here.
yeah, I might pay for Batum on a decent amount of teams just because he has triple double upside. He can score 50 fantasy points in this matchup. But he's the most expensive guy. He's only 7,400, so I think everyone's going to be paying down at the position today.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll skip down here for a little bit. I mean, Kyle Korver, obviously we saw that, that big game, 7 of 10, 4 of 6 from 3. This is a guy obviously who, a scorer, but that's exactly what they brought in there to do. This is a game where, for me, it's probably just going to be a finals preview, but looking at him, I mean, I don't mind him just at that price tag, probably about 25, 28 minutes for him.
Yeah, I actually like him a decent amount just because look at what Ray Allen did when LeBron was in Miami. And I honestly think Korver's just going to do exactly what Allen did. And he's honestly probably almost as good of a shooter as Ray Allen. And LeBron's going to drive, and the entire defense is going to close in on him, and it's going to leave Korver open in the corner. And he's going to keep shooting because that's what LeBron wants him to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like
he's a scorer.
Yeah, and at that price, I mean, that's all. If that's all he does, that's fine. If he gets you 18 to 20 real points, I mean, with a rebound here, a steal there, that's really all you're looking for out of him.
Yeah, definitely. And then another value I'm looking at JJ Redick a little bit. He might see a little bit of Oladipo's defense, but I mean, he's been playing well lately, shooting well. He's shot over 10 shots in his last 6 or 7 games. He's getting really involved in the offense since Blake Griffin went down, and he's still a cheap price across the industry.
Yeah, and he's averaging about 5 more minutes per game, which is big for him because he does need to be out there to kind of really produce. I mean, as does anyone, but more so him. Yeah, I definitely don't mind him. I mean, what about Victor Oladipo? I mean, been pretty average of late. I mean, the price has kind of come down to a mid-range where I feel a little bit more comfortable paying for him. I don't mind him. I mean, reasonable total there.
Yeah, I like him more in cash. I mean, we just don't see the upside from him very often. Someone a little more expensive I'm looking at is Klay Thompson. Like, I like the Golden State Cleveland game stack. Hope everyone's gonna do it on this late. But if you could get a game stack and get like 2 or 3 guys who are different somewhere else, it's a good way to differentiate yourself in the field.
Yeah, it definitely is. Outside of that, I mean, on DK, you have a couple of guys that are shooting guard eligible, like Austin Rivers, like Joe Ingles, who I don't mind using at that position either.
Yeah, Joe Ingles, we'll move over to shooting guard small forward, but he's a small forward on FanDuel. If I'm paying down if I'm not paying for Durant or LeBron or maybe even Hayward, I'm just going to Ingles. In the 5 games where he started that Rodney Hood didn't play, he averaged almost 30 FanDuel points in the game. Now, I'm not sure if Hayward was out in that game. I still have to go back and look into that. But he's a good value, and he actually leads the league in three-point shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I know there's always some reasonable defensive upside with him. And playing the Suns, I mean, that's one of the better matchups you can draw for fantasy production.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to go catch, Durant and LeBron just like most people. But that game's just great. It's a juicy game.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, how do you like Gordon Hayward tonight? Because there's, about $2,000 difference. Great matchup. No Hood. This is a guy who's been pretty consistent. Upside you can say is a bit capped, obviously, compared to Durant and James. But I don't mind him to say if you need to bump up another player to maybe drop down.
Yeah, I don't mind. If you need the 2,500 savings in FanDuel, I don't mind him. He's the guy I'll typically just use in cash, obviously, because upside's cash. But he's a very consistent player. He's like a Paul Millsap. He'll typically hit his value day in and day out, and that's about it. But in a game against Phoenix, he could easily score 50 points on any given night against them.
Yeah, he really could. And I mean, small forward is not the most exciting position in terms of guys cheaper. I mean, Jay Crowder, tough guy to really trust. Michael K. Gilchrist, I feel like is an interesting value because he's a guy who I think stands a good chance to get a double-double tonight, just with Boston being, a bad rebounding team. And as far as front court goes, MKG should see at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, I like MKG. He's gotten over 30 minutes last 3 games. He should be flirting around with a double-double, and he could even rack up a couple steals and blocks here and there. So he's in a good spot, and he's pretty cheap.
Yeah, I think in terms of value, I mean, he's one of the safer guys I feel comfortable with.
Yep, and that's all I got at that position.
Yeah, I mean, small forward. This was, 4-game slate. With these studs, this really is like Christmas, where if you're paying down, you really are paying all the way down. There's not a lot of mid range.
Yeah, it's a little weak at these forwards and center position.
Yeah. Next one here. I mean, power forward. I like Draymond Green over Kevin Love tonight. I know, obviously, in the battle of Christmas, we saw Love come out on top, but I just like Green for, I think, same price on FanDuel, but he's a little bit cheaper on DK. He's a guy who just contributes across the board. Kevin Love's more just a scorer and rebound, and that's about it.
Yeah, I like Draymond Green. The thing with Christmas, he was in foul trouble. He sat on the bench a decent amount, and he just got him out of his game. He got out of his rhythm. He played over 30 minutes, but when Draymond Green's in foul trouble, he gets really, really careful. And if you look back at the finals, Green absolutely owned the Cavs. So I like him more than Love tonight.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just feel like, defensive upside's always there. This could be a sneaky way. I'm curious to see his ownership, but I feel like if you can get him at sub 20, I mean, that's really good for him on the slate.
Yeah, I think he might carry decent ownership. I think both of them, because I think people are just going to try to stack the crap out of this game and just go absolutely punt everywhere else if they could. So I think a good strategy is to maybe get 4 pieces from this game and then fill the rest of your lineup around it. You're going to want people from this game.
Yeah, I think so. And I think really, I mean, if I'm making priority, it's going to be LeBron and Durant as kind of the guys that I'll build around.
Yeah, same here. But that's what everyone's going to do. But they're just the 2 best players on each team.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm not going those guys, I mean, Enes Kanter, 6,100 on DK. Obviously, the price is coming up a little bit. This is a guy who's just been continuously producing, coming off a monster game against Sacramento. And also Steven Adams, I mean, left the game with a possible concussion last night. It's going to probably open the door for at least 30-plus minutes now.
Yeah, I think Kanter's a really good play. I think he'll carry ownership. Yeah, without Adams, I like him a lot, actually. His price isn't too bad. He's been showing around 30 fantasy points. He can get you 50 fantasy points on any given night. He's a good scorer, good rebounder. He's a good player all around.
Yeah, like him, a good offensive guy. And with that total, I mean, he comes basically second to Westbrook when that offense is really rolling. They connect pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And then my favorite guy at the position is actually Derek Favors. I mean, I've been riding him since he got back from injury. It hasn't been fun, but I'm telling you, when he starts getting his 30 minutes, his normal minutes, he's really a $6,000, $7,000 player, and he's only priced at $4,700 on FanDuel, and he's playing Phoenix. It's just a really good spot for him. He could get about 30 fantasy points in this game.
Favors is the first guy I'm plugging into my lineups.
Yeah,
I mean, he's my favorite value tonight. Yeah, as you said, I mean, he is a guy who's generally, between 68 and 7,500 usually, and that's where we saw him a lot last year. And yeah, because the injury and minutes have been down, but averaging 28 over his last 6, and against his Phoenix team, yeah, I just think there's no way of kind of using or going around him.
I agree. I think he'll carry probably the most ownership of position. But like even our optimizers project them at 30 fantasy points. At 4,700, you really can't pass that up.
No, I don't think so. That just takes a lot of guys out of range. Like I don't see myself using like a Marvin Williams. Amir Johnson could be sneaky. You brought him up to me earlier, just because Kelly Olynyk is questionable.
Yeah, Olynyk's questionable, and then Tyler Zeller is also questionable. If they're both out, it's going to be Horford and Johnson playing the bigs, and that's it. The Celtics are a small team, and Johnson, he played well when he gets the minutes. It's just a matter if he gets the minutes or not.
Yeah, definitely. Outside that, though, nothing.
Yep, that's it.
Nothing. So, moving over to center, and for me, I like Rudy Gobert as the pay-up option. Basically, there's about 3 guys that I like. Luckily, you can use Derek Favors at center on DraftKings, which is an added bonus.
Yeah, that's good over there. I like Horford just because Celtics are going to need a big body out there, and Horford should get a little bit extended run if both Zeller and Olynyk are out.
Yeah, definitely. He's also a guy who produces across the board as well. So, you're getting a pretty good floor, even if he scores, 12 real points. He's still going to be getting assists and putting up 35-plus fantasy points.
Yeah, and then the center who I'm probably going to have the most of is Cody Zeller, actually, on Charlotte. He's been playing very well. You pointed him out to me earlier that he's been getting over 30 minutes the last couple of games and getting at least 5x his value. So he's in a very good spot against Boston, who's not a really good rebounding team.
Yeah, they ranked 28th. Really, once he got back from injury and was healthy, 33, 36 minutes, put up 36 DK points and 26 against the Spurs. So for me, great spot here. He's probably going to be a guy who I'll look at for value as well.
Yeah, who does Charlotte have at the bigs? Like, they don't like to play Roy Hibbert just because, Roy Hibbert's crap now. So yeah. Cody Zeller, he's in a good spot.
Yeah, if you were a coach, would you be rolling out Hibbert 30-plus minutes?
Maybe against the Celtics, but
yeah, that's true. If anyone, yeah, you'd use him against the Celtics.
And then one other player I'm looking at is Tyson Chandler. It's a tough matchup with Gobert and the Jazz, but he's been getting 15-plus rebounds in his last 5 games. So, he's been playing very well lately.
Yeah, I feel like he's a good. For me, it just seems like I'm going to be paying down at least center, DraftKings at least at one spot. Yeah, Chandler is a guy who gets that double bonus. As you said, double-digit rebounds in 7 of the last 10 games.
Yeah, 15-plus in the last 5. That's insane.
Yeah, so that's always going to be there, and he's probably going to hover around 8 to 10 real points. So there is that shot, the double bonus.
Yeah, I don't know his DraftKings price, but if he gets a double bonus on DraftKings, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's just 4,900. So.
Oh yeah, definitely on DraftKings. He's definitely in play over there.
Fairly cheap. So, anyone else?
That's it for me.
So, that's gonna wrap things up, and we'll put in the comments section. It doesn't matter now because you watched the whole thing and you won't need to skip ahead.
Yeah, we'll put it in there anyway, though.
Yeah. If you're watching this late, tell your friends.
Yeah, remember early slate, Hernan Gomez. He's the guy. I'm telling you.
Oh man, we're gonna get you a jersey just so you can hang it in your background.
That's fine by me.
Okay, so if you win a GPP with Hernan Gomez, then you can do it yourself.
Tonight's the night.
So
for me and all my viewers, Hernan Gomez, GPP. I'm calling my shot.
So that's gonna wrap things up here. Be sure to check out our tools and content for all day.
Yep. Good luck, everyone. Play both slates.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, fun slate today.
Yep. All right. Good luck.